Okie dokie.
I just realized we haven't done a basketball episode all season.
Yeah, because once Kyrie blew it, and he lost the other night. Oh man, and I think he's playing tonight. If he loses tonight, I'm gonna lose it. Anyway, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Big Sto. Nora's over there. Sorry, my bad. And today, this is episode 45. We're talking about bios. How you doing today, Nora?
I'm good. Sto and I before this were talking about tomorrow. So in addition to Office Hours, I produce a hip hop festival called Den Music Fest. And basically, we're like your new music subscription box. So every month we feature I'd like to say you'll find your next new favorite artist through us. So we give a platform to independent artists and early career artists that you might never have heard of, but who are doing amazing things. So we have a show tomorrow, and I'd love to see some of y'all over there. So it's called Den Music Fest. If you go to denmusicfest.com, you'll find links to the show. And if you're a musician or an artist and you want to perform, we don't charge for people to perform. We don't do any of that pay to play or submit nonsense. But if you've got a good performance, you're making good music, we'd love to check you out. So we take submissions on a rolling basis, and you can go to denmusicfest.com and submit your application. So I'm excited but the point of that was I was telling Sto that he could watch me be awkward on yet another YouTube platform in addition to our own. So that's how I'm doing. How are you doing, Sto?
Doing all right. If things go as planned, the Den Sessions link should be in the bio, in the description below, if I don't mess it up. Zero Sensei, how's it going? Appreciate you having us pulled up. But yeah, today we're talking about writing bios. Honestly, I think it's one of the more underrated aspects of being not even just an artist. It doesn't matter if you're an artist, a business, a label, a producer, a DJ, a pancake flipper. It doesn't matter. Like, you should have a bio. And I see a lot of people running around without one. So I'll actually, or with really bad ones. I'm usually not one to like say stuff like that, but I've read some absolutely atrocious bios that are just like, they're not helping you. And they're also not doing what I think some of you think they're doing. So we're going to kind of break it down and hop into all of that. But of course, leave a comment. This came just at the right time. My bio is trash. Created by David says, okay. It is very difficult.
It's hard to like take your whole life and put it into something concise. And then a lot of us I know struggle with like talking about ourselves. Yeah, if you have questions or comments, put it in the chat, put it in the comments below. But still, maybe that's a good place to start. Is I think a lot of people think that they need a bio, but they don't actually understand why. And I know you do bios like for everyone. Why is it so important to have a bio?
Right. And so, yeah, I've been writing bios for Lord knows how long at this point, over a decade. But yeah, writing about yourself at any capacity can be very difficult. But the reason why it's important and why you need one is because as you continuously are evolving and growing in your career and just as a person in general, you're going to run into more and more people who are just meeting you for the first time or getting involved with you digitally for the first time. So sometimes, like, I know for me personally, like, I'd be having awkward interactions the first time when I'm meeting someone. So if they can go back and read my bio, and I don't mean awkward in like a bad way, but just like you can't get a full grasp of a person always in that first interaction or even beforehand, before that interaction happens. So a bio gives an easy way for people to read up on everything that you've ever done, and not even just everything that you've ever done, but your inspirations, your motivations, your morals, all of that in a bio. Because here's the thing, at least on social media, we're all not acting, but like we're all saying and doing different things that like it's easy for people to see they'll see one tweet or one post or whatever and immediately have this misconception where if you have a bio or whatever, people can click over and read your entire story and stuff like that in one go. So, and that's not just for people and supporters, that's for business opportunities and jobs. And, you know, again, just the things that you did 10 years ago are still important, but I bet you anything, you probably haven't talked about it in a minute. It should be in your bio.
So I will preface also that there are different kinds of bios. So what Sto is talking about is like your long form bio. You don't need to put every single thing that you've ever done in, for example, your Twitter bio, or if someone's introducing you at some, you know, so, and we'll get into that. But what a bio does generally is one, it allows you to control the narrative about yourself. So you get to frame how people talk about you. If you want to, you get to kind of shape the story of yourself that you're telling. And so really what it does is it provides context through which people can understand you. So if your bio is like raindrops and lollipops, then I'm like, okay, I know that I can read you a certain kind of way, and that's going to inform my expectations, my interactions, my idea of you. If your bio is struggle and strife, then that's going to position you a different way. So you get to decide how you want to frame yourself in the landscape. And so in a lot of ways, it really is people's first impression of you, especially once we start talking about like social media bios and things like that. But the reason why having a bio is so important is because it starts to tell people how to interact with you and how to read you. And that's going to evoke, we talk about this all the time, that's going to evoke the emotional response so that when they hear your music or they hear you speak or they buy your product or they watch your film or whatever it might be, they're going to receive that or they're going to receive that. So you want to be able to shape that for yourself. And so it's like the first way that either your fans or audience really gets a bigger picture of you outside of just here's a post, here's a post, here's a post, here's a post.
Exactly. And so, and like Nora said, there are different kinds, because even not even just like there's the social media bio where you have such a condensed space. And that's another reason why it can be difficult to write for yourself, because it's like, dang, like, am I supposed to write a long form thing? Am I supposed to write 2 sentences? Am I supposed to, like, even on like Spotify or whatever, they only give you so much space. It's just like, what are you supposed to write? So we completely understand kind of the difficulties and stuff that come alongside writing about yourself. We just always want to make sure that we preface our conversation with why it's important.
So, I mean, let's just jump into it. Like, what makes for, and assuming we're talking about like a longer form bio, right? What makes for a good bio?
Yeah. So, you know, it's different for everybody. And like we mentioned before, like an artist bio is going to be different from like, I don't know, the owner of a business's bio or whatever. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is, again, make sure that not just that your accomplishments are listed, because I feel like I see that a lot as well. It's just like, I did this and then I did this and then I did this and then I did this. So, you know, I think being able to kind of tell a story again, like I honestly like to take it back to how we taught to write a bit like back in grade school. Like, you have an intro paragraph that kind of introduces yourself, kind of gives an overall of what your I guess your mission statement is. Like, if I'm hopping to your bio, like, what's the first thing you want me to know about you? What should I be? What is that context that I'm going to be looking everything through? And then honestly, from that point forward, it's really about filling in the blanks in terms of how much do you really want to tell? Do you want to tell about how you got into the space that you're in now? Do you want to talk about your come up and growing up and stuff like that? Or do you just want to cut to the chase and get to, you know, these are the duties that I have, these are the jobs and motivations that I have, et cetera, and kind of branch out from there and then just hop to a conclusion? Or I know for me, I love to tell the story of, like, or at least have a paragraph talking about how someone grew up before they even like got into whatever it is. So if they're an artist, like, Okay, like, were you inquire first? Like, did you do this? Did you do that? If you're trying to be a lawyer, where did you start with that? Like, were you trying? Did it all start like with you doing community work? Did it start with you, researching something, et cetera, et cetera? So I like to have that background before I immediately jump into like, this is what I stand for. This is, what I sound like, or this is what I've done. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And sorry, one more thing. Before you write a bio, because I'm throwing a lot at you all here, I would start with an outline. I start every bio with an outline and point out like, what points do I definitely want to hit? Because if you just kind of dive in and just like, I'm just writing about myself, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to kind of go back and then really clean up. But I think if you have an outline and a place to start, it makes it a bit easier to take that plunge into writing about yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Yeah. And so what it really is, y'all, is it's your origin story.
Right.
And especially, this is office hours, so we're talking about musicians. It's part of where you start to differentiate yourself from all the other musicians. Like, I can't tell you how many bios I've read where people are like, I started singing in choir. Great, amazing. But you also in your bio have to tell me what that meant for you, or why that.
Exactly.
It's not, your bio is not your resume. Your bio is not your timeline. You don't have, like, I read so many bios where they were like, this artist was born in January 19. I don't care. It actually doesn't matter. You don't actually have to give me those kind of biographical information details in your bio if you don't want to. So I like the idea of like, if you can do a dump of the important things, right, that have made you who you are as an artist, and then you pick out the things that are most relevant, and then you have to do the work of, so this is the difference, right, between a timeline where you're like, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And I'm like, all right, cool, but what does that mean? And that's the part where in your bio, you get to come in and say, here's how it impacted me. Here's how it shaped me. Here's how now you see the result of that in the sound of my music, or the influence of my politics, or whatever it might be. And so that story, I know we're like really pushing on it, but that story piece is part of how you're going to differentiate yourself from everyone else who's maybe had similar stories, but your story is different.
And it adds, like Nora said, I'm going to like double down on this a lot in this episode, is it adds the context. It's the narrative. I feel like so many of you, and we talked about this a bit, I think it was either during Spaces or maybe even another episode, where it's like, we completely understand that the music or the product is supposed to speak for itself. But when there's so many people pushing music, when there's so many people saying, hey, buy this, buy this, buy this, what immediately separates you from everybody else that's just spamming a link and trying to get on a playlist and trying to get on a blog and trying to get on a festival and blah, 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 is the story behind it. I use Megan Thee Stallion as an example every time, because yes, she makes incredible music, but we have heard so much of her story and we've seen so much of her personality over the years. And I mean, I don't know if she has a bio or not, but like, it still fills in that context of what we end up hearing on the speakers. So it's the same with your bio. You're able to tell where you started and add all the context that's really hard, I think, to fill in on social media. You can only do so much in 280 characters, and that number gets only smaller when you look at the actual like strip of a bio that you look in a profile. So the context and the narrative and the story is what draws people to you. And even as they're reading through, they'll be like, oh man, I relate to that. So let me keep going. And then let me actually support this person. Oh, I relate to that. So, let me dive deeper, versus, again, just hoping that someone sees a link and like, oh yeah, I guess I'll click that. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Right. I think about it for myself. I do a lot of speaking, right? And I speak in front of audiences who don't really know who I am a lot of the times. They're not like following me on Instagram or my Twitter. So whoever has invited me, reads my bio by way of introduction. And so those like 6 sentences is going to form people's first impression of me, so that everything I say afterwards is based on that idea. They know nothing about me except for that bio. And so it frames the way that people will relate to me. And like, oh, Nora's cool, or oh, I actually don't like her, or oh, we share this thing in common. And so that's where people start to build that emotional relationship. I think, speaking of emotions, one of the hardest things when writing your own bio is deciding what to keep and what to take out, because we're attached to our stories. We're attached to all of our accolades. We're attached to all of our accomplishments. And so I think one of the hardest, but really the most important things is to edit. And I'm not talking about proofread and make sure your like punctuation is right and all that kind of stuff, but really edit. Does everything need to be in there? Or can you pick and choose the things that are most important, that are most salient, and use them to give enough of an impression, and then people can be more curious and learn more or see the details or whatever it might be, because you don't need every single thing in there. And so being really curatorial about your story is going to, sometimes like we say less is more, right? So editing the details or making, you can decide. And I think a lot of people treat their, I'm looking at what Sandroid had said earlier about how it's hard to write a different story for different audiences. So you can tweak your bio over time. You can make adjustments.
Right.
If you're submitting to, blog X, you might want to focus on these things. But if you're submitting to a festival, you might want to focus on some other things. So treating your bio as a living document that changes over time also takes off some of that pressure of having to put every single thing in one place.
Exactly. And I think, you're allowed to tweak it, and not even just for different audiences, but again, as you accomplish more things, you meet more people, you do more things, stuff like that. Like, you're gonna have to tweak it. There's like, we're not staying in this exact same spot. We accomplishing things, so that bio is constantly gonna be updated and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Well, because you're talking about accomplishments. One of the things I think I see people do a lot is they just list, here's all the collaborators I've worked with, here's all the places I've been featured in, which is cool because you're proud of it. But also, people don't really absorb a bunch of names like that. And so
especially not on the list like that.
Especially not in they're like cool bunch of names, but it's going to bumble in all together. Sandroid says, this is really helpful. I never thought of the context aspect. Awesome.
Nailed it.
Yes. Hold on. Where was I going?
Accomplishments list.
Yes. So one of the things you can do, rather than telling me all your accomplishments in your bio, is you can show me. And so, right. So you can quote what others have said, right? Rather than saying like, okay, so this is a 2-parter. One is I see a lot of fluffy words in bios that don't mean anything. Artists will say, so-and-so is the hottest artist out of Atlanta and their music is fire. Those words do not mean anything. That's fluff. I don't know what hot means. I don't know what hit means. I don't know what fire means. It doesn't actually show.
Damn, you don't know what that fire means? Damn.
Don't know. But you can tell me that, I don't know, XYZ magazine called you the hottest, artist to watch, or a trailblazer in this genre, or whatever. Not only are you giving me proof of concept or social proof that other people are saying these things about you, rather than you're just gassing yourself up, but you're putting the accolades, the accomplishments in context. And you're breaking up the monotony of, it's kind of monotonous to read someone's bio, right? And so you're breaking up the voice of the bio. So you can take those quotes, or you can take those collaborations, or you can take those accolades and mix it into your bio and use other people's words to talk about you. And that's a really useful way to make your bio stand out, but to also kind of say how hot you are without using the words hot or fire or hit or up. Please don't say up and coming. Please don't say up and coming. Please don't say up and coming. Up and coming means nothing. It means nothing. It's only don't call yourself up and coming. If you're up and coming, that's great. Please don't say up and coming, because it doesn't mean anything unless you say that someone else has recognized. That's a great way to use a quote or someone else's reflection on you to show me that there's like hype or buzz around you. Please don't call yourself up and, oh my God, I just had a visual reaction. But you can use other people's words and these tools to paint the narrative of yourself that we've been talking about.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, I was just gonna say what are some common mistakes that you've seen in bios? And the one that I want to make sure that every artist at least knows is that stop comparing yourself to other artists. Stop that immediately. Like like one or two names is fine, but I've read way too many bios where it's like 10 names. And here's what happens. It sounds crazy, but again, me and Nora talk about the psychology of it all every time that we do one of these office hours things. And when you start mentioning other artists, what ends up happening is people be like, oh yeah, I can just go listen to insert artist here. And then they've left your page, they've exited out, it's gone. Like, not saying that opportunity is completely lost, but like the train of thought has already been derailed because you're so busy talking about like the artist that you're inspired by, which there's nothing wrong with, but the focus on your bio should be you, not all these other people. Because I see that way too many times, way too much.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And for a couple of reasons. One is you don't want to set yourself up, as Sto is saying, you don't want to set yourself up against someone else. If you're like, yeah, this person is like Kendrick, now I'm going to compare. Like, you just don't do that. Like, don't do that to yourself. But I think it really is part of serious sentences. People compare themselves to artists, and then I click the link.
And that's tough. That's tough right there.
But, and I like how honest we are here at office hours.
Right.
But it's also because I think a lot of people are not good at talking about their music. And this is also helpful when you're doing press releases. Like, if you tell me this is a hip hop track, I don't actually know what I should expect. Serial Sensei says, I'm a heavy consumer, so these things bother me a lot. Which also you have to remember, like, if your fans care enough about you to read your bio, they're probably invested already. I'm only reading bios of people that I'm into and I'm invested in. So you want to make sure that you're giving them something juicy. But I think a lot of artists don't know how to talk about their music. So you want to be able to describe your sound, your visual aesthetic, your sonic aesthetic in a way that I can read it and be like, okay, this sounds like a Kendrick. Like, let me make that comparison myself. Or, oh, this sounds like this is going to be like an Afro trap. Cool, I'm interested in this. Let me press play because I'm curious about it. So part of your bio is also figuring out how to talk about your music and describing it in a way that's going to make people understand what they can expect when they press play. And again, that's where you got to avoid words like, is it rhythmic? Are you using strings? Is it influenced by, like, is there a high melody? This is a good question from Zach. Let me finish this thought. But this is a good thing to practice, is how would you describe your music to someone who doesn't know what hip hop is or who doesn't know what trap is? And that's another thing to focus on, where you're avoiding words like hot or hit or, fluff words, but talking about your music in a way that doesn't compare you to others. Zach is asking, how would y'all approach a bio update ahead of a transitionary project release? A process that pivots slightly from my style from, say, last year.
Yeah, so for me personally, because I literally feel like I handle this all the time in a bio, it's usually what I like, because again, the bio is supposed to add context and tell your story. So with the new project and stuff like that, that's towards the end. So, I'd have that in the conclusion in a way that where you're able to A, describe what style this is, B, tease that something new is coming, and maybe C, even talk about like the motivation behind that. Like that's, it shouldn't take up like, half or over half of your bio, because it's the next thing. It's, it should be what people are anticipating. So, at 3 to 5 sentences max, should have that update at the bottom. I do that all the time with my clients. It's, it shouldn't be this big thing, because again, you have a whole career behind you that is still valid and things that you've still accomplished. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that like last sentence. This is what we were talking about earlier in the episode.
Exactly.
And y'all, if you're still watching, please make sure you hit the like. Maybe you share this with some people, because we're about 25 minutes in. And if you're still rocking with us, we appreciate you. Show us some love, because Sto and I do this for the love. But if so this is part of like the bio being a living document. As you work on new projects, that's what your like last sentence could be. And so for something like this, Zach, you can say a sentence like, in 2022, after this thing that happened, Zach decided to transition into a new style, deviate from his original style to experiment with X, Y, and Z. And that new project is being released in April 2022. So you tell me that there was a transition, you tell me why, you point it out, and then direct people to the new project that came out. So simple, sweet. The place that you can also then use this, right? And this is where like we remind you of an ecosystem of communicating with your audience, is if you do update your bio, take a screenshot, post it to Twitter, post it to Instagram, share it on your newsletter, and ask your audience, hey, updated my bio. Does this sound like me? Do you have any unresolved questions? What is it? Did you learn something new about me? And then use it, because oftentimes, right, our bios are kind of like one-sided documents. And so you can turn it into something a little more interactive that reminds people, oh, you might not know this about me, or hey, come check this out.
Right, exactly. Again, and it doesn't have to be a big part of your bio. It really should be like the end, as you're updating things. Yeah, and even if it's other, like whether it's performances or whatever, collaborations, I guess, stuff like that. I think again, it is a living document. Created by David. What would you say is a good length for a bio? Personally, with a website, on your website, I think I personally, depending on like, if you're doing 3 to 4 paragraphs or whatever, I think it should be anywhere between like 400 to 600 words, maybe. I've typed bios that are longer than that, but if you're really trying to condense it down, that's where I would stick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, as long as it needs to be. So however long.
Yeah, exactly.
To get it out. You should have like a longer bio, but you should also have a short bio that you're using to submit to festivals, or you're using to submit, for like, if you're doing social media collaborations or things like that, that's also a good one to have. And that short bio should really be the most important things. Should really be like the story contextualized. I don't need every single accolade in the short bio. I don't necessarily need to know like even where you're from, unless that's an important part of your like brand and story as a career, your story and brand as an artist.
Right.
So that short bio should really give me all the kind of context to understand you as an artist when I'm making a decision about, should I put you on my festival or introducing you in some like cross collaboration event or something like that. So those are the two. You should have like a short one that's ready to go and a longer one.
Yeah, absolutely. Damn, time went by super fast. I feel like. First off, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, y'all, if you're watching this and you have other questions, I feel like this might need a part 2. So drop those questions. We'll always answer them here, but we'll answer them in a future episode as well. As you know, Sto and I really do this for like the love. And so if you want to drop something in our CashApp or Venmo, the information's on your screen. We're trying to get Sto to LA so we can do some like joint projects and like create content and short videos and like bring out more stuff for y'all. So, you know, if you want to show us some love, we'd appreciate it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, appreciate you all for watching. If you need a bio written or a press release written, definitely hit me up. Honestly, if you watch this episode and you reference that episode as you're hitting me up, I'll give you a discount. So there you go. I've written well over like 300, I think, over the last like couple years alone. So I'm really good at it. But yeah, let us know your other question. Oh, go ahead, Nora. My bad.
I'm also going to make a super quick plug, which is if you go back, we have some negotiation episodes and contract episodes. I'm teaching a negotiation masterclass at the end of the month. So if that's interesting to you, the link for that is creativemoney.eventbrite.com. And if you mention this episode, slide in my DMs and I'll give you a discount for that. So they're asking if you would review bios.
Yeah, definitely would do that. And to answer Zach's question real quick, in your opinion, does writing a bio in the first person frame it as informal at all? I personally would never write a bio in first person, but that's just me. Yeah, so I wouldn't. I genuinely would never do that.
I don't know that it's informal as much as it comes off. Yeah,
don't do it. It doesn't look. It doesn't look right. Like, and honestly, what I might consider doing, go read some other bios and see how kind of. I'm not saying like copy it or whatever, but like that'll give you kind of a head start on like where to go. But yeah, I don't know. Writing in first person, it just. Yeah.
Wait, sorry. Did you answer this question still?
Yeah. I definitely would review bios for sure.
Cool. Yeah, y'all send us more questions. We'll always come back and answer them. I think we'll definitely do a part 2 to this. Thank you for supporting Office Hours. Make sure you subscribe and share, and take care of yourselves. Drink some water. Breathe. Stretch.
Get some rest, damn it.
You're
working yourselves too hard. I can feel it. I can feel it across the universe. All right, get some rest. We'll see you all soon.
Bye, y'all.
Also, join us for Den Sessions tomorrow.
Tomorrow on YouTube.
At 8.
8:30 Eastern. 5:30.
8:30.
8:30.
Oh, God.
You'll get